Today we're going to be talking about sentence types, and in particular, we're going to talk about simple sentences and compound sentences. In this lesson, we're going to learn what simple sentences are and how to form them, what compound sentences are and how to form them. Then we're going to zoom in on one part of the compound sentence called the fanboys. We're going to learn what they are and how we punctuate them. Finally, we're going to review what we learned at the end of the lesson. So to start, you might be asking yourself, why do I need to know this information? That's a great question that you should always ask. So when we add variety to our sentences, meaning when we use different sentence types, it does a lot to improve our writing. First, it keeps the writing interesting. There's nothing worse than a writer who uses the same sentence type throughout the writing. It gets really boring. Just like if you use the same vocabulary words, it gets really boring. Second, adding variety to your sentence types makes your writing smoother, right? When a writer uses only simple sentences, we say that it sounds very choppy, and it doesn't sound good to our ears. Take this as an example. I went to the park. I saw my friend. He said hello. I said hello. We saw a dog. The dog barked. It doesn't sound very smooth. It sounds like someone chopped up the sentences or chopped up the story with a knife. And then the last thing is that adding variety to your sentence types helps show relationships between ideas in the writing. And this is really important for your reader to be able to follow your point and what you're trying to say. We'll talk more about this when we talk about connector words for the compound and complex sentences. Let's get started with simple sentences. Now, I'm sure that you've learned about this before, but I'm just going to review in case it's been a while, and also because some of this information is going to be really helpful for the compound and complex sentences. A simple sentence is an independent clause, one independent clause. A clause has to have a subject and it has to have a verb. If it doesn't have one of those things, it's not a clause, and therefore it's not a sentence. It has to be an independent clause as well, meaning that the sentence should be able to stand alone by itself. It doesn't need any other information like another clause to help it be complete. And of course, a simple sentence has to be a complete thought, right? So if you say, for example, she wants, is that a complete thought? She wants? No, because you don't know what she wants, right? So she wants an ice cream cone, or she wants more homework. Those are complete thoughts, and therefore those are simple sentences. Let's look at some examples of simple sentences. In the first one, Tina is the subject, and is going to is the verb. The store now helps this sentence be a complete sentence or a complete thought. In number 2, see if you can identify the subject and verb, and you can pause the video while you do this. In number 2, Tina and her friend are actually the subject, and the verb is are going to cook. Notice that Tina and her friend are two people, right? So you might think, oh, is this two subjects? No, it's just one subject, what we call a compound subject. One subject that has two parts. And it has one verb, right? So that's how we know this is a simple sentence, not a compound sentence. In the last one, number 3, what do you think is the subject? They, good. And will eat and watch is actually the verb. Notice here there are two verbs together, but they share the same subject, right? So we call this a compound verb, but because they share the same subject, it's still a simple sentence. So just a little bit of a review for what simple sentences are. Now let's practice. So I'd like you to pause the video and read the sentences. For each sentence, ask yourself, is this a simple sentence or not? Remember some of the rules that we talked about from the last page. Please pause the video. I'm going to give you the answers right now. So number 1, is it a simple sentence? No, it's not a complete thought, right? I went to the store, or I went to the park, or I went to see my friend would be a complete thought. Number 2, this is a simple sentence. It has a subject, a verb, and it's a complete thought. Number 3, not a simple sentence. There's no verb here, right? Actually, this whole sentence is the subject. The big park near my grandmother's house is the subject, but there's no verb and it's not a complete thought. And number 4, also not a simple sentence because this is a dependent clause. It's not independent. It's not a full sentence by itself because it's going to rain. No, we'd have to add something like, let's stay home because it's going to rain. Or because it's going to rain, I'm going to bring my own umbrella. Okay? All right, so just a bit of a review for simple sentences. Let's move on now to compound sentences. Compound sentences are different from simple sentences. Remember that a simple sentence has one independent clause, but as we can see here, a compound sentence has 2 independent clauses. And a compound sentence is also joined together by coordinating conjunction. This is a fancy grammar term that you may have heard in other classes or in your grammar book, but for us, I'm just going to call them fanboys because all fanboys are coordinating conjunctions and they're easy to remember. Notice that the fanboys is preceded by a comma. The comma has to go before the fanboys in the sentence. Let's look at a couple of examples. Here are 2 simple sentences. Each one is an independent clause, meaning it has a subject and a verb. But this sounds very choppy. Sam played the guitar. Grace sang along. And it doesn't show the relationship between the ideas, so we can actually combine these 2 independent clauses using a fanboys, or coordinating conjunction, and making it a compound sentence. Let's take a look. Sam played the guitar and Grace sang along. Notice that we still have the independent clauses from sentence number 1, but we are joining them using the fanboys and. Also notice that before and, we put a comma because we need to put a comma before the fanboys in a compound sentence. Let's look at another example. And for this one, let's see if you can help me. Noah got a phone call. He decided not to answer it. Again, 2 simple sentences. How can we join them together using a fanboys in order to make a compound sentence? You can pause the video while you think about your answer. Think about a word that you would put in between these 2 sentences that would help show the relationship between them. Okay, so did you say, but Noah got a phone call, right? Our first independent clause. Our second independent clause is joined by but, right? The fanboys. So again, we have a subject and a verb at the beginning, a subject verb at the end, and in the middle we have the fanboys preceded by a comma. All right, let's talk a little bit more about these fanboys. Some of you already know what I'm talking about. For others of you, this might be your first time hearing about them. Fanboys are coordinating conjunctions, and each of the letters stands for one of the coordinating conjunctions. So, for example, the F stands for for, right? It has the same meaning as because, relatively. The A stands for and. The N stands for nor. The B stands for but. The O stands for or. The Y stands for yet. And the S stands for so. Okay. The most common fanboys that you're going to use are and, but, or, and so. To be quite honest, we rarely use the other words, and they're quite formal as well. But if you can memorize and, but, or, and so and get used to using those, they're going to help you tremendously in your writing. Okay, a little bit of practice. Are these sentences simple or compound? You can pause the video while you read the sentence and decide if each one is simple or compound. Okay, that was super fast. Here are the answers. The first one, simple, right? Even though it has the cats and the dogs, it seems like 2 subjects. Remember that this is a compound subject, and we can tell because there's just one verb, needs. Number 2 is compound. Can you identify the fanboys? It's so. Mhm. And number 3 is simple. This is a long sentence, right? But only one subject and only one verb. The talented students is the subject and learned is the verb, okay? So I hope that's starting to feel a little bit better for you. Let's review what we've learned so far, and then you can go on to do the practice activities. First of all, simple sentences, we learned that it is one independent clause in a simple sentence. That means one subject and a verb. The second thing is a simple sentence must be a complete thought, right? It has to make sense. It has to be logical. In compound sentences, we learned that they are two independent clauses and they're joined together by a fanboys. Please also remember that the comma needs to go before the fanboys. All right, students. Well, I hope that gives you a good idea of what simple sentences are, what compound sentences are, how we form them, and also a little bit about how to use fanboys and how to punctuate compound sentences. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.